Welcome back to Surviving Divorce at 3 a.m. With us next is Jennifer's husband, Timothy Owens. Now, Tim Owens is a counselor and he does a lot of really neat work, but in my life, he has made me aware of places where I was not giving myself the the good mental health that I needed. Places where I was overextending myself, or places where I wasn't giving myself the quiet space to grow. And he has really taught me a lot. Now, Tim is here because divorce doesn't just affect women, right? 8.9 times as often men who are divorced will actually take their own lives at 8.9 times as often as women do. Now, that's a terrible statistic. I want it to stop. We're doing this now because this is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And I want you to know your life counts. I read something yesterday that said, if, 3 out of 4 suicides are men, but if men would actually stick around, instead, they would accomplish more than could be accomplished by curing cancer. So we need you guys. But divorce can hurt deeply if you're a guy and you lose your community, your family, um, your support system, your social network. So we want to make sure that you have what you need as well. And all of this stuff today can't help but, when you see so many lady faces, a lot of times guys will just tune it out. So I'm just so grateful for Tim saying yes to being part of today's sessions. I'm going to go ahead and bring him up and let's get started. Tim,
Uh,
thank you so much for being with us today.
yeah, my pleasure.
I'm grateful for you. I like your artwork too. I don't know. This is the first time I think I've seen your office, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Well, Tim, you're here. You deal with a lot of guys on a regular basis, not necessarily specifically about divorce, but about some of the life choices they make that either can cause divorce or that can result from that feeling of hopelessness. So
yeah.
tell us a little bit about what you do, Tim.
Well, I am a behavioral health therapist, do psychotherapy, and I run a men's program at a major hospital in Western New York. So
Hmm.
I am and have been working with men for a very long time, probably since I'm thinking 2000. Well, actually, well before then, but around 2000 or so. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but have just enjoyed doing that and have had a lot of opportunity to kind of connect with men around issues having to do with divorce um, and or suicide. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And you shared your story in the book, in the 3 a.m. book, When Divorce Keeps You Up All Night.
right.
You actually talked about how you gave yourself the space. Not necessarily wasn't your idea, right? But somebody challenged you to give
Yeah,
yourself the space to heal, to really deal with things that needed to be dealt so that you didn't end up being one of those second divorce failure statistics, right? Because the rates of second and third divorces are exponentially higher
absolutely.
than first divorces when we don't take the time. So, Tim, you're here to help us
Okay.
know, I don't know what to do. So you were telling me that you had some real talk for real men about divorce, and I just want to give you the floor. I don't want to take up your
Oh,
space because I know you've got good stuff.
Oh no, no, just the interesting thing about men and divorce is
Mhm.
let's go back to men in marriage, right?
Yeah.
So the Bible says it's not good that men should be alone, right? Left to our own devices, we don't do well. So I'll make him a helper meet for him. And so what's interesting is that what happens with men often is because we are taught from little boys really to compete more so than to cooperate, right?
Mm.
I think female culture says, hey, you figure out how to cooperate, you play together. Male culture says you play against each other, you compete, and so consequently we don't really figure out how we're not often very good at establishing close, intimate male to male relationships. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
so then what happens then is in order to avert loneliness and that sort of thing, we find ourselves when we get married or in a serious relationship, our wife, our spouse, we kind of lean on that person as our person, right? So we often don't go out and find other people to connect with,
Mhm.
build a community around ourselves, and so consequent, which is by the way a very unhealthy thing to do.
Yeah.
So what happens then is if and when the marriage goes south and divorce takes place, we find ourselves extremely isolated
Mm.
and alone. And what we know is that isolation is what drives poor mental health.
Yeah.
Um, Connection obviously drives actually facilitates quality mental health and quality of life. But so that isolation, and so consequently, then if we find ourselves isolated long enough, typically what often we end up doing is finding the next thing smoking, the next woman, right, who shows some degree of interest in us. We say,
Yep.
hey, why don't we get married? you know, so we go from the frying pan to the fire because we haven't dealt with all of the issues that were necessary to deal with for our that caused the first divorce. Let's put it that way, right?
Right.
So we take all that baggage into the second marriage, which then makes it significantly less likely that will be effective. And so then ultimately we end up alone. And so often what happens is we try uh, to to numb those feelings of insecurity, of isolation, using often alcohol or other drugs.
Mhm.
That can happen. And then as we kind of circle that downward spiral of despair, it sometimes ends with, well, I might as well just end it all.
Right. And
Unfortunately,
that's such a lie, but it feels like the only reality at that moment,
right?
right?
It feels that
It's funny, just yesterday in the daily devotion on One Moment Wiser, I was talking about Proverbs 18:1 that says, "Whoever isolates himself
way. Mm,
seeks his own desire, but he breaks out against all sound judgment."
true.
There's sound judgment
Mhm.
in being part of community, even when it's awkward.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Being having authentic, healthy relationships. And,
Yes.
and so you mentioned the challenge to me. So my mentor, uh,
Mhm.
who happens to be a woman, said to me, "Okay, Tim, I'm noticing that you're not doing things in a healthy way. So why don't you just? I want to challenge you to take some significant time uh, and simply learn how to be with yourself. Be with yourself." And I was like, "What do you mean by that?" you know, you know, and she was saying there's a difference between being by yourself and
Right?
being with yourself. And
Oh.
yeah, and so I had never really developed that skill to learn how to be with me. And so I took her up on the challenge. I I it, I took. She said, "I want you to do it for 3 years." I said,
Ooh,
3 years?
that's a long time, Tim.
3 years? She said, "Yeah, that's." And so, but in that time frame, that's what I needed to heal. To I needed to do some introspection to really understand who I am. And interesting story. During that time frame, I came up with this acronym for my name, and our last name is Owens, and it stands for Overcoming Winner, Energized by the Need to Succeed.
Overcoming winter, energized by the need to succeed. I love that you actually respected yourself that way. That's gorgeous.
Thank you, thank you. And by God's grace, was able to sort of pass that on to children and hopefully grandchildren, so that they kind of see
Nice.
themselves that way.
I
Yeah. So
like that.
yeah. Well, thanks. But but this is a tough thing, and most men won't say, "Hey, I need help." Hey, because we're
Right.
programmed. You got to be strong, you got to be tough, you got to be, all of that
Yeah.
toxic masculinity stuff, which says, which is really why we end up dying earlier. I really believe. So I don't know if I'm moving in the right direction with this. Is this okay so far?
Yeah, I think this is fabulous.
Okay,
So, how you said, it is hard, right? We want to put our best face forward and be
sure.
all tough.
I am.
And that makes it really challenging when you're a
Hmm.
guy and you're
Hmm.
meeting other guys. My husband has had a lot of discomfort going to church groups with other men because everybody like talks politics or something, that is like a safe topic that's not really safe, right?
Mm.
And because you don't always agree.
Right.
And how do you get into that? How do you get past that? How do you keep showing up until you're past the bravado and
Hmm.
into the like actual friendship,
Ooh.
actual community?
Great question. Great question. And what I'm learning is that ultimately, um, what we as men need is a tribe, right?
Yeah.
We need a tribe, but before we can get to the tribe, we have to actually develop some individual relationships. And the way I tend to do that is, I just
Mhm.
find a guy who I'm interested in and say, hey, let's go have coffee. Let's sit down and connect and chop it up. And yeah, initially the first session or two is, hey, how'd your football team do? And you know, but actually, eventually down, as we continue to talk and really
Mhm.
more so listen. Um, what happens then is eventually we get into the deeper stuff. Hey man,
Yeah.
I'm having trouble with this, and I don't know how to communicate with my wife because she wants this and I want that, and my boss is bothering me at work, whatever the things that are deeper. I don't
Yeah.
have, I don't know what my life purpose is and how to figure that piece out. I feel like I'm just floating out here doing nothing with my life, and we get to the place of what I call pain, right? And so what's interesting about pain is that I'm learning is that there is purpose in pain.
Ooh.
Um,
Yes,
yeah,
there is.
I know, right? We tend to think of ourselves as needing to be pain free, really, but without pain, we don't really grow. There is no growth. Like I like
Yeah.
to lift weights, right? And what we say in the gym is no pain, no gain, right? And
Mhm.
so there's purpose in pain, but what happens is that if we don't actually deal with our pain effectively, ultimately we bottle it up, right? And it becomes overwhelming.
Yeah.
Um, which leads me to the next piece. There is pain relief in purpose,
Mm. Yes.
right? So there's pain relief in purpose. often what happens when men decide that there's no reason to live, really what we're
Right.
saying is there's no purpose for me. I don't understand my purpose, and I am in such pain that I would rather just end it. But here's
Right.
what's true. If I can notice that that what my purpose is, the reason I'm on the planet, right? If I can identify those things, that reason, then I can begin to relieve the pain and move beyond it by really engaging and helping somebody else, right? And so
So true.
there are four things that we think about where purpose is concerned, right?
Hmm.
Four elements of purpose. The first one is passion. What are you passionate about? What do you
Hmm.
love doing so much you would do whether anybody paid you to do it or not? Right. So the first one is passion. The second one is are your key life experiences. So sometimes what happens is our purpose finds us before we
Hmm.
find our purpose,
Yeah.
right? And so there are some key life experiences, things that we have that we experience that really kind of point us toward purpose. So there's passion, there's key life experiences. The third piece is there is hmm, there is your people group, your
Yeah.
people group. Now watch this. Here's what's true. So if my purpose is to get all I can all I can, and to just sit on the can, you know, my purpose is way too small, right?
I'm sorry, but that was great.
No worries. My purpose is way too small. So my purpose has to be bigger than me, right? It should have
Hmm.
it's something that should be impacting people for generations, maybe even centuries to come, right? The
Hmm.
purpose that I pursue, I'll never completely achieve it or finish it. I am simply I continue to pursue it. So, but it involves my people group, right? And my people, the way I know my people group, watch this, is that I know my pain, right? So here's the thing: my pain is tied to my people group. So
Hmm.
the very thing that's caused me pain is the thing that really typically points to my purpose. So you got to know your passion. You need to know your key life experiences. You need to know your people group, and then fourthly, you need to know you need to have a team, right? You need to find your team. So team, of course, the acronym is together. Everyone achieves more. Am I talking too long?
Oh, hang on a second. I just got a cough.
Oh, do you think? So,
We are
so
about to wrap it up, but boy, I'm overcoming this cold.
okay,
Anyway.
I understand. Real quick, and I'll finish this up. So my team together, everyone achieves more, right? What's true is
Yes.
that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with a team, go with a group. And so once I
Hmm.
understand who the team that have the same passions, key life experiences, and people group that I have, then I'm really able to pursue purpose well.
And
So,
that sounds like something that does take a little time to
oh
develop,
yeah.
right? If you have spent the last, often in a marriage,
Hmm.
we get comfortable,
Yep.
right? And we
Hmm.
can spend years sitting on the couch,
Mm.
in our comfort zone, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes we get into addictions or other kinds of things that are not healthy,
Right.
and that's where our only joy comes from, right? And
Mm.
we lose sight of our purpose. We never even thought about our purpose because we got comfortable soon, early.
Yeah. Exactly.
So if you have been there, you may be like, oh, I don't have a purpose. Other people have a calling. I don't have well, it could be because you haven't actually sought it,
Mm.
or because you haven't given yourself enough space to find it, or you
Yeah.
haven't given yourself enough life experiences to
Hmm.
discover something that made you really excited,
Right.
right? I had to, when I was going through my divorce, I had to make lists. What kinds of things do I want to try? And I'd try some things and I'd be like, oh, no, I'm not really interested in doing that again.
Right.
Then I'd try other things and I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing in the whole wide world, right? And you don't know that until you actually start trying,
Yeah.
start doing things and doing them more than once,
Mm,
because that first time might be awkward,
sure.
but doing them more than once, and that's how you find things
Hmm.
that you really just lose track of time doing,
Yeah.
and you enjoy them and you think about them for days, right? And that's how you find people
Yeah.
who also enjoy doing those things.
Absolutely.
And yes, instead of trying to, sitting in this moment and going, it's never going to get better
Hmm.
just because this moment feels that way,
Mm,
allow yourself the time to make it through that moment and
mhm.
put something on your list to do. And when I was going through divorce, I wasn't there were times that I wasn't real motivated. I walked out of a movie because I was just there was no point. I was not enjoying anything, you
Sure.
know? But you keep showing up, you keep doing things,
Yeah.
and we make it through to the point where, Tim, today you are able to speak about purpose and passion with
Mm.
such enthusiasm because you've
Mhm.
experienced it. I'm
Yeah.
so grateful that you gave yourself that time. I'm grateful you gave us this time today too.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We're going to put Tim's information in the chat, and at the end of the day, we'll give you a whole list of where you can get a hold of people. So if you need some help, Tim's here for you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank
We'll be
you.
back in a few.
Take care.